All right. So today we are going to continue working on our React News site. But before that, we're going to talk about the component lifecycle. All right.
Are we gonna be coding along with you today like we did on Thursday, or?
Yes, but only for the React News site, and that will come later. So right now, right now we're not coding along. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to show some examples of the life cycle. Okay, so let's start. We've seen some parts of the life cycle demonstrated through some of the, we've introduced it a little before. We have methods that we can use to access the component at different parts of its life. So when it's just mounting, so when it first renders, when it updates, and when it's about to be deleted. So I'm gonna create a project and we can kind of play around with that and see the life cycle a little more up close. What am I doing? Okay, so I'm gonna create a new project. Just gonna say component life cycle. Okay. I'm just going to clear out my app. Okay, great. Awesome. So we are gonna I'm gonna clear this entire thing out. So to demonstrate the life cycle, it's a little easier to see that through class components. So I'm gonna be showing you that first, and then we're gonna transform the class component to a functional and see how that translates. So I'm going to need to import React or component from React. I think it's lower if it's uppercase. Component from React. And so class app extends component. And then in the component, we're going to have a render function. And this render function is going to have our return. And this will hold our div. That's similar to what we've seen before. Oops. Okay. And I'm just going to say React app. All right, so I'm going to run this. Oh, I didn't go into the project. Okay, created the project. Forgot to do npm install. And then afterwards, I'll do the run dev. Okay. Import app. Oh, I forgot to export. So in class components and functional components, the export statement is the same. So export default app. That should fix it. Okay. Cool. So now if we go here, we should see awesome React app. Okay, so to demonstrate this, let's add a new component, and this component is going to be the component that we create and then update, and then we'll see it unmount. So I'm just gonna call it something. .jsx. Okay, and this one is going to be also a class component. Something. There's component. I'm going to need to import components. Okay. And then I'm just gonna do the render real quick. The render function, and then I'll return. Okay, so we're in, or I'll just say this is something. Okay, so I'm going to just render it on the front page, and I forgot to export it. Also, if I'm not checking the chat, feel free to raise your hand or ask if I'm not answering the questions in a timely manner. It's // I guess I misspelled it. Okay.
I think you have something spelled wrong. Line 3.
Here.
To the right.
Oh,
Oh, you did spell it like that.
I
Never
think
mind.
I spelled the folder.
Fine, sorry. I just
Yeah,
thought-
no, I mean the file. Yeah, thank you. And that's pretty cool. If you change the name and you have an import of it, it'll ask you if you want to just update the import. And I would say yes. Okay, so now I'm just, yeah, this is just some setup that I'm doing. And I'm gonna display the something thing. Okay, cool. So this is our app, and this is something. Okay, so when this renders, we are going to, when the app renders, sorry, when it gets to this line, it will then render something. So let's see the initial point of rendering. So to access that, we have a function called component did mount. And this will get called once when this component is rendered. So whenever you call it from somewhere else, it will get rendered. And let's just do console log. MLI. Okay. So let's go here. I'll open my DevTools. Okay. Okay. So here, our component started rendering, and we see our I'm alive statement. We will see this twice, and I had to look it up and figure out what it does or why it's doing that. It turns out, so in our app, if you go to main.jsx, we're using React strict mode. And apparently what this does is it puts additional checks on the app when we're doing development. That way it catches like weird life cycle effects and stuff like that. So it runs our entire component before it actually runs it, like before it renders. Yeah, I have the documentation. I'll put a link to it in my notes. Yeah, so this doesn't affect code that's actually in production. So it's just when you're running it in a dev server, it will add some extra checks. So it's useful. Okay. But anyways, so yeah, our component mounted, you see it here. Awesome. So if I take this out, actually, let's go back. Take this out. We should see it only show up once. Actually, I can just comment this out. Okay. And there we go. It only showed up once. Okay. So that's one of the built-in functions to access the component lifecycle. Another one is going to be component vid update. And this is called every time a state or prop that belongs to our component is updated. And this takes in two things. Sorry, one moment. Actually, sorry, this one doesn't take anything in. So it just keeps track of the state and the props. And when something is updated, then it will do whatever you put inside of here. So I'm going to say I'm updating. And then our third function is going to be component will unmount. And this is called right before the component is about to be removed from our DOM. So I'm going to log 9. Okay. So right now there's no behavior that will trigger any of either of these. So let's add some of that. I'm going to add a button. And what am I going to do with this button? On click. Yeah, this is the syntax. I'm actually going to add state first. So state equals this. Usually when you're in a class component, you don't want to just set the state like this. You would want to have a constructor first, and that would that's where you set your state, your initial state. I don't think I've seen this in, I don't know if this is like good convention to do this, but we're gonna do it right now, which is bad, but it's faster. Okay, So, why did I say extend? Exists. Okay, so I want to see if I want to add a variable that will trigger showing this. So we've seen this before, the conditional rendering. So if I say exists and to access this, I'm actually going to have to say this dot state dot exists, or actually, yeah, this should be correct.
You never finished your on-click function.
Oh, thank you. What's okay. Thank you. Okay, so on click, I want to change this to true. So this dot state dot exists. Actually, so when you're doing the state, similar to our functional component use state, how it gives you the actual variable and then like set state function. So in here, we actually have a set state function, which is what we should use whenever we want to set state. So this dot set state, and it takes in a dictionary of whatever you want to update. So I want to update exists, and I want to set that to true. Okay, and then the button, I just want to call it create. And this, so when I click on this button, this should show up. And then I'm going to create another button. Let's copy this over. And this is going to be destroy. And when I click it, it's going to set the state to false. Okay. State is not defined. Is it in this? No.
In the notes, it shows that state was defined outside of render.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, this is the fun of class components. So yeah, inside the render, you shouldn't have any methods. It's, you can just set like constant variables and stuff like that, but anything that is method like or like state wise, you put everything above the render, similar to here. In the component, we actually put all of these above the render. This should work. Okay, so if I create it, I should see I'm alive. And then if I destroy it, shows I'm dying, which is pretty cool. So we can use this to, I don't know, maybe if we have data and we want to, when we close the page to, or like when the component unmounts, to save certain data that was changed during that session or something like that, or I don't know. It has a lot of purposes. And now let's see what the update.
Your app.jsx again.
I just want to add another example real quick. I'm sure we've all seen situations where like you're filling out a form on a page and you try to click back or whatever, and you get interrupted by some alert that's like, hey, you've got unsaved changes. Are you sure you want to leave the page? Like something like that might run in like an unmount event handler or lifecycle method.
So the whole something down at the bottom on 20
Mhm.
because I guess it was at the end of its return. That's why it did the unmount thing.
It's because it was going to unmount. So it was true and then it became false. So it was going to be removed from that page, from the DOM.
Hmm.
So
What was going to be removed?
something. So here, something is showing conditionally based on this state. So
Oh,
I have so we have the state
if this is
exists,
true. It does something.
and then when it's false, then something gets removed from the page. Because it was already, so when I created it, we have the component over here. When I set it to false again, it will have to remove this component from this page. And that will create that
So the alive happens from which one?
from the create. So let me clear this.
No, I mean like the mounted.
Oh, component did mount. So the moment the component mounts, let me close that. Yeah, when the component mounts, then it will say, I'm alive.
And then once you change it to false, it's unmounting. So it's the
Yeah.
same.
So it goes into the component will unmount part.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Dalton, can I create two of what of these?
Yeah, like if you press the button twice, does it make two?
No. So the button will only set the state to true. And since the state is already true, it's not going to change anything. It didn't actually change the data.
Cool.
So it shouldn't, it won't unmount. Oh, so it's updating. Okay, that's interesting behavior. I actually didn't know that once it's alive, it'll update. Oh, probably because it already exists. It's detecting that something changed, but it's not actually remounting. So it's ending up back here. But let's actually trigger the behavior that does that I was expecting actually. So I'm gonna add some value. And it'll just be 0. And here I'll add a new button. And this button is going to set the state of some value. Did I spell that wrong? Of course I did. Okay. Some value to, I'm just going to give it a random number. So math.random times 100. So it'll just give me a random number and then call the button update. And now I want to send in the value in here. So some value, I'll just call it value. Value equals and this is going to be this dot state dot some value because that's how we can access it here. Okay. And then in here, I have access to it in the props. It's going to say the value is this dot props dot value. Okay. So now I create it it's alive, and then if I update it, it'll go into the update function. If I update it again, update function, and then again, and then if I want to destroy, it'll destroy it. Any questions?
What happens if you click update after you destroy it?
If I click what? App update,
Yeah, after you
it's not going to do anything because it doesn't exist. It's not actually there to detect any changes. Yeah.
I was just wondering if it'd throw any errors specifically, or if it just wouldn't work.
No, because my update button is just setting a value to a state. So it's not going to actually do anything, anything bad. At least it's not going to throw any errors. There was a hand up. I'm not sure who it was.
Yeah, it was me. So you don't need to, in your something.jsx file, you don't need to pass props as a parameter anywhere.
No. Here because it's a class-based component, you can access the props through this. So this dot props.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can you go back to app.jsx?
Yeah.
So I think I'm confused on the something just accesses value, right? Not some value. Oh, okay.
I renamed
value.
it. Yeah. Yeah. So I can just call this some value.
So is that the equivalent of like passing it in like we do with the,
Yep, it's exactly that. It's just sending in the prop.
okay.
Yeah. So we're sending in this value as a prop into something.
Okay, so is this still only doing it if it's on true and then you click the update?
Yeah, so if I click the update, it's just going to update this value, but it's not going to do anything related
So if
to
you
the
click-
component because it's not there. Sorry, say it again.
Oh, okay, so the update button just sets the value. And then when the state is true, it's showing the value.
Yes.
Okay,
When the state is true, it's showing something.
so it's not.
It's showing
just
it's showing the component. Huh?
So just to essentially repeat what I just said, it's not the update button that's making it show that random value. It's the update button that is setting the value. And then once its state is true, it's displaying that.
Yeah, exactly. Once, so it's displaying it. So, okay, let me go back here. When the state is true, that means that the component exists on the DOM or on the page. So it is rendering. So here, when I created it, the value of exists equals true. That means that we're seeing our component here. And if I update, it's only actually printing out anything here is because the component already exists and it's waiting for state or props to change. And that will call the component did update.
So what happens if you click create again?
Create won't do anything again. So actually, sorry. It's actually, I don't know why it's doing that. Raphael, do you happen to know why it updates whenever I set this to true, even though it's already there?
Can you show me again?
So it's in here. So if I create it, it's alive. And then if I create it again, it says that it's updating. And the create button just sets the exist value to true. but it didn't actually change. It was the same thing, but maybe because of how we're using set state here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure even if you set state to the same value that it was before, that triggers an update.
Mhm.
So I know I've seen lots of React code where like in the componented update event handler, they actually check if the current state is different from the previous state. And only then they like perform a bunch of logic, just because it will run even if the state was set to the same value it already was.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah.
Sorry, can I just see one more time the code that you have to say basically only if this is true, show something?
Yeah, so this one. So if
Oh, okay.
this value is true,
There it is.
yeah. Then we show the component. Any other questions or comments or confusion? Okay. So let me show you this diagram real quick. I think I have it over here. There we go. Sorry, I'm trying to open it. Link. Oh, this is just the docs. Okay, the page is not actually opening. Sorry about that. Here, I'll move this down. Hold on. Okay. So doesn't like me clicking on it. But this is a visualization of the component lifecycle. So you have a render phase. It has no side effects, and it can be paused, aborted, or restarted by React if it detects issues. So in our mounting stage, so when we first initiate or initialize our component, so the first time it is being called, it goes to a constructor, and then it goes to the render method. And then, yeah, Michael.
Sorry, I was curious, what do you mean by it has no side effects?
That means you can't, I believe these are side effects, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look. So side effects are I'm pretty sure the side effects are the same thing as the effects that we use.
So, sorry, what's the context that we're worried about side effects here?
Here it's saying that the render
The
phase has no
render?
side effects. Yeah, I think it's these, right? These are side effects.
So, generally speaking, when you're talking about like functional programming, like programming in general, but especially functional programming, we talk about this idea of pure functions, which is a function that only accepts output or accepts input as input parameters, arguments, and then returns output as like a return value or whatever. That's a pure function. A function that does anything else that modifies things outside of itself, those are called side effects. So if you're like assigning a variable that exists after the function runs, or if you are just updating any other data, or even like console logging is considered a side effect, because that's something that happens outside of the function. It's something beyond just taking input and returning output. And so in the context of React, these render methods are just supposed to return HTML. Like the whole purpose of the render function is just to determine what is this component supposed to look like on the page. And so it takes an input, which is just props and the state, and without modifying anything else in your program, it's supposed to tell you what the component looks like in HTML. So that's what they're saying when they say that there's no side effects. Your render function is not supposed to be modifying global variables or printing things to the console or like changing things on the page. It's just supposed to return the HTML text. So it's just input and output.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Raphael. Any other questions? Okay. So our component did mount happens after the first render. When it goes to update, that means there's a new prop, a set state that happened, or a force update, which is its own method. So you can actually force an update without having a new prop or a new state. Then component did update will be called. So this is in the commit phase. You can work with the DOM. And when it's about to unmount, it will go to component will unmount. And yeah. Any questions about this? Yeah, so this is just component did mount, called right after a component has been initially rendered on the screen, and it's most commonly used when you want to make an initial call to the API. So that's a very useful thing. So whenever you don't want to get your data too many times or do it in a place where you don't really need it. So whenever you mount your component that you want to display your data in, you can do your API call in the component did mount. That way your data is going to be fresh. And the did update, like we said, calls when the component re-renders due to a state or prop being updated. And then the unmount called before it's taken off the screen. Yeah, Michael.
These functions like the component did mount, update, and unmount, those are still available in functional base components as well, right?
I think, I don't know actually. Are we able to access them in the? I think we're not supposed to.
They're not, no.
They're not.
You cannot access functions with these names using the functional components. There is an equivalent technique we can use to achieve this same functionality, but not with functions that have these names. So that's actually why we're showing you this using the class-based components to begin with, because the functionality like does what it sounds like. It's named for what it does. So it should be a little bit more intuitive learning it this way to begin with. We're going to show you how to do the same thing with the functional components, but the syntax is going to look much less intuitive. You're just going to have to kind of memorize what does what. So we want to show this way to begin with, just to ease your learning.
Yes, and it's a great segue because that is actually what we're going to do right now. So use effect, I believe we saw it last week, sometime, I think maybe during stand down, but so use effect will replace all of these and we won't need to access them individually. The syntax is, you just need to get a little used to it. That's why we started off with these to kind of understand what happens where, because the naming is pretty on the nose, you know. Okay, So before we start, anyone have any questions? No, okay. Actually, before I do this, I'm going to transform this to a functional component because we need to use effects instead. So this is going to be function something. Getting rid of that. We have a return. This.
Well, Before you just erase all of that, can you just comment
it out.
that when you're yeah, so one, we can just see it, but then also when you teach us the functional, you can like this is equivalent to the did
Yep.
mount.
Definitely. I'm just gonna comment out this part. Function something. And then we're just going to return. Actually, I'm going to take this return statement because I this. Okay. I'm gonna take this out for now because I'm just gonna delete it. Okay. This is fine. Okay, this works, or it should. Let's see how we can do use effect, or how we can use effect. So the syntax is use effect, which is a function, and this function takes two parameters. First parameter is going to be another function. And what this function is going to do is just whatever you want it to. So inside here, this is the part that we are putting in that function. So whatever we want in here will go inside of here. So I'm going to just do a console log. And then I'm going to say components rendered. Oops. So, and then here it takes a second parameter, and it which is an array. And if you have this array empty, that means that you're not doing it based off of any updates. So it will do it on what is it called? On mounting. So did mount, we should see this. Actually, I'll just call this the same thing. I'll just do the same thing for continuity's sake. Okay. So let's see what happens here. Invalid hook. Oops, where did I call it? Oh, I I put it outside of the actual function, which is not what it's supposed to be. Okay. So inside of a component, we have our use effect. And now we create it. It says that I'm alive. Perfect. Let's see the example of when we want it to unmount. So
Wait, can we see what did you change to your app.jsx? Anything?
nothing, no. Because it's still just calling the component when we click the button. So that's all that's happening.
Okay,
Yeah, so nothing changed here. I'm just changing the implementation of the logs, pretty much, like what will print when.
Zane, maybe it'd be easier to understand if we saw updating first.
Update, okay. Let's start with update. So we had a prop.
also, does use effect only happen on mount then?
No, so we'll see a few different examples. I'll start with the update one. I mean, I guess we saw this one, but we'll transform it into an update one. Like Raphael was saying, it probably is gonna make more sense.
Okay, well, like as you go along, could you just add a couple of comments on this is what you need to do to make it go on mount, this is what you need to do for on edit or
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay, so this one will be on update. Or I'm updating. I think the more correct one is I'm updating. Okay, so what we changed is we took that sum value, and if it changes from the props, that means that we're going to call this, or the use effect will go into effect and this console log. So here we create the app. So I'll explain this in a bit. We'll ignore that part right now. And if I update, it's going to say it's updating because I changed the value. So we can add another one here.
So anything that was past that prop would have done that because you're not actually displaying that sum value in your render. So anything that would have taken that prop in would have console logged that, whether it's displaying it or not using it.
Can you say that one more time?
Well, so like in the previous example, you were saying like, this is my value and you had it at 0. And then when it was updated, it showed it the new value, but you're not actually using some value at all here. You're just,
I'm using it as a trigger for the effect, the use effect. So before our, where is it? Component did update gets called whenever anything is updated. For this one, you're specifying that I want to only call this if this value gets updated. And here, if you had multiple values that you wanted to track whether they're changing or not, you would add them here. So if I had another value, you would add it here, and then that would track either of them. If one of them updates, your effect will get called. Your function will get called, sorry, because of this effect. Does that make sense? Or so yeah, okay. Yeah, so here we're just sending the value and into the props, so we have access to it. And then here, just for clarity, I will let I think if it's the string, I have to do this. So it's $. We'll see if it works. Value and yeah. I actually don't know if that's gonna work. I don't know why I did that. Let's do this. I didn't need the curly braces. Okay. So here, I'll create, again, it's just calling because I didn't set anything else for our, it's just gonna, so the use effect will always get called on your first rendering. So if you have multiple, the first one will get called first. So we'll add some stuff to make it not say that it's updating, because we want the first one to be based on something else. So I'll show you that after. But so right now we've mounted our component. We're going to say update. It sent a new value, and we're updating that value. Should probably put this up here, so we see that it's the same thing. Okay, so yeah, that's the same value that it was updating to. So if I update one more time, it's updating this, because that's what it took in. Does that make sense for this? Yeah. Okay. So with the second one that I'm adding, this will handle our component did mount and our unmounting. So my first function, actually I don't like putting it here. I don't know. I'll fix that later. It just looks bad. Okay. So inside of this function, I'm gonna say I'm alive. So this is supposed to be the one that gets called when the component mounts. And then to do an unmount one, let's see, return. Okay, so whenever you have this return in here, that means that it's for component will unmount. And this will be another console log. Okay. It doesn't like these. Okay. And we pass nothing in to this array because we want it to be for the component will mount in the unmounting part. So let's see what happens here. Create it. So the first one gets called, and then the second one gets called. And the first one gets called because regardless of if you have this or not, the first use effect will always get called on the first render. So if I want to change that behavior, I can say, I can keep track of a variable. Actually, okay. So there's another, this won't be too confusing. So there's another hook that we can use. It's called useRef. And it's pretty much the same as useState, but if I change something in it, it won't re-render my component. And I'm only using it now because I want to keep track of a state, but I don't want it to mess up anything with my re-rendering at all, because I'm trying to show the use effect functionality. So the way to use this is I define a variable. So I want to keep track of which one is my first render. And I do use ref and then I send in a value to initialize it. So similar to use state, without it sending back two things, it's just sending one. So I want to keep track of the first render, and in here, because this gets called first, I'm going to say if not first render. Then I'm going to do this. Oops. I lost it. Okay. Okay. This looks good. So if it's not my first render, then I want to show my update, because like I said earlier, it was showing the update whenever I rendered just normally without updating the actual value. So this should fix it. And then here we are doing, we don't really need to do anything else. Actually, so after our first render, we want to say first render equals false, because it will no longer be true. False. I forgot actually, so first render, the actual value is inside something called current. So it's just accessing the current value of it. So the current value of render is true on the first render, and then it will get called here. So let's.
Is that something you always have to do whenever doing use ref?
Exactly, yeah, you have to put dot current. I think it has a dot previous as well, which is oops. Yeah, I don't have access to them, but they're in the docs. Yeah, yeah, we'll look into that a little later, but it's, oops, let's see, it's an action. So in theory, right, when we create, it should only say I'm alive, and then it will update once we hit the update button. So let's see what it does here. Create, awesome. So it only shows I'm alive, and then I update, it's updating the value, update again, and then destroy, the I'm dying thing works. So what would happen if I flip these? So let me put this one first. I'll remove the conditional for now, because the conditional we needed for this, right? Okay. So if I put this first, and then I put the update one, let's see what happens. If I create, it's saying I'm alive, and then it's saying it's updating. And then if I update, it's updating. Okay. So it automatically gets called. Let's keep the rendering stuff. Will it work? Create. So it calls both I'm alive and I'm updating, even though the first render happened. And I'm actually not sure why does it get called if it's after. Raphael, do you happen to have any insight on this? So the reason why, like, what is the reason why we put our on update first? So when I created this, because I flipped it, and when I do the create, it's saying I'm alive and then I'm updating. Does it always call them in succession, like in order?
You know, I'm not sure. I've never really thought about that. I usually try to structure my code so that it doesn't matter what order they're called in. So I'm not really sure what the internal logic is there.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is rendering again because I have it. Oops. this. But if I save it. Yeah, it's calling both. I'm not sure. Yeah, Michael.
So isn't it because when the first use effect goes, it turns first render to false, and then once the second use effect runs, it says like if it's false, then run I'm updating.
It is that, yeah, but even the fact that I removed it, so I removed the use effect and it's still calling it twice.
But
So
then
I'm
you also
guessing,
removed the use reference on the second one, so it's just calling them both, right?
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, it's just calling them both, that's pretty much it. And the only reason why we put them in the other order was because we were using the render part. So I'm just flipping them again. So we're keeping track of the render, the first render. And yeah, that's the only reason why we put this one after this one. So if you don't have them in any certain order, it'll just call them in succession. Questions? Is it making sense? How we use the use effect? So just to recap, if we want to do an on update use effect, we put a value inside the square brackets here. Or not just one value, you can put as many values as you want to track. And then if you want to access component did mount or component will unmount, you don't put anything to be tracked in the square brackets. And for the unmount specifically, you're going to access it in the return. So when your function is going to be returned, then you have access to it in here. Any questions? Yes, no? Okay. Right. So I'm going to show another example of this. I'm gonna change, yeah, I'm gonna change here. Break. Yeah, let's do a break. We did start a little early. Let's come back at 55. I think that's good. Yeah. Okay. I'll see you guys then. All right. So we're switching contexts now. We're going to be working on the new site. And I have some initial code. So I'm going to clone that and we can get started whenever everyone's set up. And so when you clone it, do npm install. And then you should be able to just run it. So npm run dev. Let's see if it actually, oh, okay, cool. So this is the code from last week Thursday, new site part 2. And I'll wait until everyone is set up.
Did you answer Caleb's question? If we followed along last time, is the code the same or have you changed it?
I have not changed it. Actually, there is a new data folder file. So for our nav bar. Yeah, our nav bar just has one extra thing. Not one extra thing. We're gonna be changing it a little bit. Sorry, I'm a little slow today. It's a Monday. One sec. Are you guys still getting set up? You guys need more time?
So you said we clone and then npm install. Is that what we're doing right now?
Yeah. So clone, then CD into your file, and then npm install, and then npm run dev. We'll wait for about 4 minutes. And hopefully everyone should be up and running by then. Is anyone getting any errors or having any issues?
Yeah, I'm getting an NPM error.
What does it
Like,
say?
NPM error code init. It's like ENOENT and then NPM error syscall open, NPM error path, NPM. Oh, I'm not in that then. Sorry, hang on. Yeah. Yeah, there's like 9 of them.
So you cloned the project and
Yeah.
then you CD'd into it and then npm install.
Yeah.
Could you copy and paste the code? The error, sorry.
Okay, maybe I'm not. I don't think I'm fully in the directory. Let me try that.
Oh. So did it work or? Yeah, okay, awesome,
Yeah, we're good.
cool. Does anyone else need more time?
I just want to add a little tidbit about that error real quick that you got. I'm pretty sure that's one I've seen many times before, and you'll probably see a lot in some different contexts also. That specific error message, ENOENT, that's an abbreviation for error no entity. So you tried to like access or refer to something that doesn't exist. In this case, if you try to do npm install, it's going to look for your package.json file in order to know what to install. But if you run npm install from a directory that doesn't have a package.json, npm is going to yell at you because it's trying to access an entity that doesn't exist. So you'll get that ENOENT error running npm install from the wrong folder potentially.
As muted. Does anyone need more time? Are we ready to start? Okay, let's start. So what we're doing today is we're going to add functionality that allows us to go find articles based on the section. So in our data here, there's a section, what is it called? Piece of information, I can't think of the word. So we want to be able to grab all the section or all the articles related to a specific section, and that will be in our nav bar. So our nav bar is going to hold links to different section websites. So let me just remind you guys of what we did last time. So we have our web page. I uncommented our nav bar for now because we want to change it today. And so we have our list of article teasers. If we click on one of them, it reroutes us to articles/article ID, and then it gives us our article here. Good? Yes. Okay. So first step, we are going to change our nav bar. I wasn't supposed to actually put the one that we were going to change it into inside the folder, but app nav is what we are changing it to. I'm going to show how to use the nav bar from React Bootstrap. So actually, I'll just go over it step by step. I think that might be faster. So instead of nav bar, we're going to be using app nav here. So our app nav first takes our sections information, which I should have showed first. So the sections that I showed you earlier in our news.json, we have a folder here in the data, a file, sorry, in the data that gives us a list of those sections. So we have opinion, world, national, and business. So what we want to do is loop through this and display our, what is it called? And display them all. I'm actually going to, let's change our nav bar here because I want to code it alongside. So you can delete your app nav here. And we're gonna just transform our nav bar. So I'm gonna call it app nav because the component that I'm grabbing from Bootstrap is called nav bar, and I don't want it to be the same. Okay. So function app nav, it grabs items. I don't want to take anything from there. I want to actually keep my data inside the app nav. I want to keep it out of my app.js. So yeah, I already have it uncommented, so you guys won't get any errors. So I'm in my nav bar. I changed the name of it, and then I'm actually going to change the file name as well. So app nav. And it's going to change the references if there are any, which there is one in app.js, but we'll worry about the app.js specs later. Okay, so we're going to import a few things. I want to import navbar and nav from React Bootstrap. And I can actually show you guys what those look like. So nav bar. So this is their documentation and how to use it. So there's a few different options, but mainly you have your nav bar, and then you have a nav inside of it, and that's what will hold your links. So yeah, we'll implement this. Okay, so we imported our nav bar, and we're also going to import our sections data from our JSON here. So import sections from dot slash, I think it's, no. Yeah. Data, okay. Actually, forgot to put sections.json. Okay, so we're importing our sections data here. Since we're dealing with data, we're probably going to need our use state. So let me import that. Let's curly braces. Use state from React. All right. So first step, I am going to set the state. I'm going to create a sections state. So constant, I'm going to call it nav items, just so I know what I'm going to be using it for. And then set nav items equals use state. And I'm going to just initialize it with our sections data. Okay. Any questions so far? We've seen this before. Okay. We're not going to need this on click anymore, because our nav bar is going to have links, and the links will just automatically link to whatever we want it to. So let's delete everything inside here and start fresh. Okay, so we have
What was
our
that reference to items? Because I'm looking on app.jsx and I don't see it.
so items were where is it? Where's our nav bar? Oh, I deleted the nav bar. Oh no, it's right here. So items was the nav items, and that we were pulling from, there was a file called nav items data. Do you remember from before, where it's pretty much like the sections, but it was longer and it didn't actually fully map out to the sections that we had, which this file should have been there from the beginning, actually. Yeah. So in here now we don't have anything called items, so I'm just gonna actually delete this entire thing. Okay, so we're starting fresh. We just have a div. Good. Okay. We're gonna actually delete that div, because we are going to just instantiate a nav bar item or a nav bar component. So in this nav bar, I'm going to add a nav component, and this will hold all of my nav links. So inside of here, I'm going to say nav items dot map, and so inside of here, inside the map function, I'm going to have an arrow function here. Okay. And my first parameter is going to be my singular nav item that it's gonna go through, and then I'm gonna grab the index too, because I'm probably gonna have to set a key. So we're looping through our nav items, and we want to return, because we're going to need a bigger component, so. And then we're going to return nav link. So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, I don't see nav items anywhere.
right here, so that was our first step. We imported our data, so here I'm just gonna,
Oh, okay, so sections is nav items.
yeah,
Okay, sorry.
no problem. Yeah, I'll just name it sections. Sections. And then sections, okay. Yeah, I wanted it to be, okay. I'll rename it again. It's because it makes more sense when you're reading nav items.map inside of the nav. And okay, so this is going to return a nav.link. And in here, I'm going to display, let's look at our sections data real quick. I'm probably going to want to display the label because it's in all caps. So I will go back into, yeah, my app nav, and then here, nav item dot label. Okay, so this should render my label, but we don't actually have it linking to anything. So if I go here, actually we won't see it because we haven't imported it, but yeah, just take my word for it. It won't actually go anywhere. Okay, so since this isn't a map, I'm going to start with a key. So key equals index. It's just a simple way of setting a key. Forgot no commas. And then on click, yeah, I can just do console log to make sure that it's clicking, but I don't really need to do this. It's fine. Okay. I'm just gonna set the href because that's what we're used to. So href equals not what we're used to, but what we want to do with this. So we can set our href to I don't know, let's say hash slash section for now. Okay. And so, okay, is everyone caught up to this point? Yeah, I'm actually going to change this. I am going to do an on click because we don't have our actual route set up, and I don't want to get any errors. So we're going to set an on click function. So on click equals square bracket or curly braces, and then the arrow function, and then I'm just going to do a console log of our nav item data. So nav item dot value, and that was, oops, that was just the lowercase version of it. Okay, because that's what we're going to end up actually routing to when our link works. Everyone caught up to this point? Yes? No? Good, good, okay. And now I'm going back to my app.js. I'm going to delete my unused, I'm just going to clean up my code a little bit. So I'm just going to delete anything that is not used or like the commented out stuff on the top. So I'm going to import my app nav that I just created. So it's over here. And inside of my app, I'm also going to delete this commented out line of code. Okay, so in my active, I am going to import my app nav right above the router. And then I can remove the commented out one. Okay, so this should display our app nav that we just created. Let's go back. We'll go to the main site. Okay, cool. So we see here, and then if I click on one, it shows the value. Awesome. That's what we wanted. Any questions? No? Okay. So right now we have the links, but they're not actually routing to any URLs. So let's create a route so we can actually take it there. So we're going to create a new route. My path is going to equal, so this is going to be for the section page. I'm going to call it sections slash, oh, I should put the first slash. So slash sections slash, I'm going to want to send in a section name. So I'm going to have a parameter here to actually be able to send that in. So slash section name, and then, yeah, so my element, okay. My element is going to equal, I did do that. A new page that I'm going to create. And this page is going to be called section page. I think that's a decent name for it. So section page. And then close out the tag. And we haven't created this yet. So that's going to be our next step. So in our pages folder over here, I'm going to create a new page. So section page. .jsx. And let me see, I have an error back here. I think I didn't close out. Yeah, I didn't close out my route tags. So I can either do it this way, or I can just delete this one and then just say slash closing tag, and then that will close my route. Okay, so no more errors. We like that. So my section page, I'm going to create a function. So, or a component. So function section page. That, this. And then we're going to return. And I'm just going to put a div in here. I'm going to say section page. Okay. So let's see what this is going to do. I need to import it. So I'm going back to my app.js and I'm going to import the one that I just created. My imports. I kind of try to keep my imports a little organized. So I have my data here, my React router stuff here. I'm going to import my section page. Okay. And it's called here. So everything should be good. Let's try routing to it. So here. I forgot to export as usual. So export default section page. Okay. So clicking on this won't do anything yet, but let's try just going to the URL / section. Oh, I forgot the hash. So hash / sections / I'm just gonna say something, it doesn't matter. And now it reroutes me to a section page. Awesome. And you notice that this kind of goes here. I think there's some default CSS that's already in there. So yeah, this would be fixed with CSS. But yeah, any questions so far? So we just created a section page and assigned this route to it. Everything good?
Can you go back to the app import app.js? Yeah, the import section.
Yeah. So I just imported my section page. And before that, the app nav. Does anyone need more time or is stuck on
Okay.
anything?
Thanks.
Okay. So in our section page, do you guys remember how to access our URL parameters? No? Anyone wants to volunteer? It has been a bit of time. So I actually forgot the actual import name. It's use params. Okay. So we have a nice little function that the router, React router gives us, and it's called use params, which we used last time. So I'm going to import that from React router DOM. Okay. I hope this font is not too light. Fine. Okay, no one's complaining about it. Okay, so I'm going to define the parameters that I'm going to use. Oh, Alicia, you want the nav code? It should be in the chat now.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to be using my use params to grab the section name. What did I call it? I just called it section name. Okay, cool. So constant section name equals use params, and we call it as function. And then here I should have access to the name, so I can say section name page. So now I should be able to see whatever name I use. So if I just click on this, I get some errors. So project's not valid. What did I do wrong? Created constant. I didn't misspell it this time.
What was the error again?
I might have not saved. It was objects are not valid as a React child. So This happened in. Yeah, it happened in the section page when rendering this. I mean, I did this. Did I name it differently? No, it's the same.
So it sounds like it doesn't like the section name on line 9. Like, what is that supposed to be?
It's just supposed to print out this, the parameter. So it's supposed to be the parameter that I'm pulling in.
It seems like React thinks that that's an object literal.
Mhm.
So something with the templating interpolation syntax isn't quite right.
Mhm.
Like that's not the curly brace like React interpolation syntax.
Yeah. I'm just gonna do a console log. Make sure that I'm getting it. Do you think there's another way of accessing whatever's in here, or that's, I think this is a safe bet. So if I do that, okay. Oh, that's weird. So it is giving me. It's not actually like assigning the value to this, even though.
Yeah, so
Oh, I think I have to put it.
yeah,
sorry.
actually on the console log, do section name that section name because it's a dictionary.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that was my mistake I was supposed to put the curly braces. So let me try that here. Section name. Yeah, it worked. I was just not doing the correct way of assigning the variable to it. Which is kind of a good exercise. So if you guys ever see that issue, check to see if you have the curly braces here. All right, so our link actually routes to this, and we have access to our parameter from the URL. Does anyone have any questions?
Could you
yeah.
just explain? I'm kind of, where are you putting the HR or whatever it was? Like the actual.
In my app. Is this what you're talking about? Like the path, or
So like when it like the section name actually gave you like HRFD or whatever it was. Where is that from?
HRFD? Oh, that's because I
Oh,
wrote this up here. So if I said world,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
that was just keyboard. Any other questions? Angel, yeah, so in the code that I had sent, or in the code that you guys cloned, the React router should have been already in there. If not, you might have to do npm install React router DOM. This. Any other questions? Okay. So now that this is working, let's actually hook up the navbar links. So if we go to app nav in here. So we're not gonna really need the on-click, but we can keep it if we wanted. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's just doing a console log. We add an href entity. What are these things called? What should I, or prop? It's a prop. Okay. Answered my own question. So we would want this to go to sections. And then we're going to add our nav item value in here. And I believe if we're in a string, we have to do this. $sign. And then, so this is the backtick. That's an escape character. I might be wrong. We might not need to.
Your
do this.
backticks need to go at the beginning of the href. I
Oh,
would
thank you. Yes, yes.
It's the one thing I got for you, Zainab. That's about it.
It gave me an error.
I got
Um,
nothing. You did forget your dot value though.
Yeah, but I think that should have been, maybe, I don't know, maybe not. Yeah, it doesn't like this. I think I might just be able to. Actually, I don't know.
Is it because since you're writing in the return statement, doesn't the href have to also be wrapped inside of the curly brackets? Isn't that true?
Yeah, like how you've got key equals index right next to it.
Oh, okay.
It's easy to get confused because we've got like JavaScript inside of our HTML, inside of our JavaScript.
Yeah,
It's very turducken-y.
so. Is it just a regular string now or no? I don't even know.
I think the backticks might
The
work now.
backticks, yeah,
Oh, it didn't? Oh,
it gave a. Oh, I need to put the $sign in front of this. Okay, now it works. Thank you. All right.
For those of us who aren't as smart as Dalton, why did that work?
We needed to put the curly braces in there.
Yeah, why did we need to?
Oh, I think it's just the way that the props are being sent. I think Raphael just said, I forgot what he said.
well, isn't it just because like in order for your HTML to take the JavaScript, you have to encase like your JavaScript
And then,
inside of it?
yeah, and the curly braces, kind of like
Yeah.
when we're doing this. So our HTML, like this is the label that we want, so we have to put it in curly braces here. And this is a JavaScript syntax thing where you can do the backticks and insert a value into the string. Okay. So now if we go back to our app, or what we're expecting is we click on one of the navbar items and it will reroute us to sections / whatever we chose. So gonna go back to this and I click on so yeah, if you missed it, if I click on like opinion, it takes us to /opinion and shows the opinion page, which is great. That's exactly what we want to do. Any questions before we move on? Okay. So what do we have now? We just have an empty page. Now what we want to do is grab this this parameter and filter out all the articles that have that specific section and display that. So I'm going back to my code. I am going into the section page. And in here, I'm going to need data. So I'll send it in through the props real quick. I'm gonna add the props at the top of my section page, and then I'm going into my app.jsx and I'm going to send in articles. So articles equals articles in curly braces. Okay, so I just added this part here. And then I'm going to go back to my section page and grab those props. So let's see, how should we do this? I'm going to create a filtered list. So, actually, let me think about this. Actually, since we just saw use effect today, let's do that. We're gonna see an example of that. So use effect. That. All right. So what we want to do is when our component mounts, no, maybe when our parameters change. So when sorry, not parameters, when our props change. So if our articles list changes for some reason, we could have a fresh list of articles. Or we could do it on mount. But then it would just mount, it would just grab our articles when the component first renders. Let's actually do that because our we know that our data is static here and we won't need to actually update it. But if we were getting it from, actually we won't go into that. This is, yeah, let's do that for now. So use effect. And again, this takes in 2 arguments. Our first argument is a function. And then our second argument is square brackets. So and a list or written array. So one thing is always remember to add something here. Like even if it's just the empty square brackets. So if you don't have these here, it's going to loop indefinitely. It will just keep going on and on. And this behavior is going to be horrible, especially if you have an API call and you have only like a specific amount of API calls allowed, and you will run through them very quickly. So yeah, make sure you always have the square bracket. This will prevent that. It will only do on mount or yeah, that's it. On mount or on unmount. Okay, so our use effect, what do we want to do? We want to take our articles. So actually, instead of props, I'm just gonna call articles here. That's what I'm expecting to pull in. And I'm gonna say, let's use also a state. So use effect, and then I'm gonna also import use state. And in here, I'm going to create a new state that will hold my filtered articles, the section specific articles. So here, I'm going to call this section articles. Articles. And then set section articles. And this equals use state. And I'll just initialize this as an empty list. So in here, I can say set section articles to, I'm going to grab the articles that I have from my props, and then I'm going to do a dot filter. I think I can do that. I forgot the syntax of the filter. I think it's not dot filter, I think it's just a function. filtering arrays. No, it is something dot filter, and then we send in name. Name includes, and then okay, so this is our dot filter function. Oops. Okay, so this is the syntax. It's going to be, I'm going to put it on its own line. So constant filter articles equals articles dot filter, and it's going to take in, so it's going to take a parameter, and this parameter is, we can name it whatever we want. So in articles, let's look at our data real quick. Our articles have a section which we should check to see that we imported it when we started our, okay. So in here we did not. Remember when we set our initial articles data? So in here, I'm going to add a section. So I need a comma here, I forgot. Okay, section. It's going to be article dot section. There we go. Okay, so it recognized it. So just to recap, I went back to my app.js, and in my initializing of articles with the use state, I added a section here. And this is grabbing the section data from our articles data. Yeah, Dalton.
Real quick, are you importing article on this? I don't remember, or are you just passing it in right there on map?
So I'm creating articles and I'm mapping, I'm looping through the news data
Oh,
and
okay.
grabbing, I just named it article as an
And
alias.
so you could have named that anything, right?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay. So I went back to my section page. I want to fix this. So I'm gonna grab, so inside of articles, I'm going to say articles dot section. It might actually not need this. I think with the filter. No, it will. Okay. So this is going to be article. So how the filter works is it's kind of like the map syntax, where if you say dot map and then this is the parameter that it gives you, it's for each object, what will you name this object? So I'm going to name it article here. And after this arrow function, you have to say what is your condition. So my condition is that my article section, so article.section, not articles, singular article dot section is going to equal my section name that was in my parameter. Okay. So what this code should do is give us a list of articles where the section name is equal to the section name that we had in our parameters. And then we're going to set our section articles equal to our filtered articles.
Hey,
I think someone is unmuted.
I'm actually leaving right now to go to Starbucks.
Okay, I muted him. Okay. So this looks good. So now we have set our section articles when our component mounts.
Zainab, your articles does section, put the S again.
Oh, thank you. It's because I spelled it wrong. Okay, that works. And all right, so now we should have access to section articles. So what we're gonna do is, I'm just gonna display the section articles that we create. So we created the section articles .map. And in here, I'm just gonna say, take an article. And I'm gonna return just a div. Oh, whatever. Article dot, oops. I'll just say title for now. We'll see. Get those titles, and then I'll also add the section just to make sure that we actually got the correct section. Article that section. All right, let's see what this does. So I'm gonna go back to my home page so we can see the whole functionality. So now if I click on opinion, okay, it did not actually render anything. Let's see if there's an error. There is not. Yeah, Michael.
So when I was looking at the news.json,
Mhm.
the section has like the first letters capital, but when we have our section name from our use params, I'm pretty sure everything's lowercase. So I think in our apps.js, when we initialize section, should we do like a 2 lowercase to make it all lower?
So hold on. Let me look at the section real quick. Yeah, so I'm actually taking the value. And in my news.json, oh, I understand what you're saying. So it's not all lowercase, which is why it's not filtering. Thank you. Yes. Good catch. So I'm going to say, is it just lowercase? I forgot. Like lowercase.
I think in JSON or JS, it's like afterwards it's dot to lowercase.
Okay. To, oops. I'm gonna Google it. I think it has to be sure that it's text. Let's see. So it should probably work. Lowercase. And we'll see what it does. Back here. Just gonna clean up these real quick. Okay. Go back on national. Still don't get the issue, the data. So let's see. We have our nav bar. Nothing is actually rendering under it. It's probably because this is empty. So I'm going to check if there's anything there first of all. So I'm going to say section articles. I'm going to do the question mark syntax, the tertiary or ternary. I forgot how to pronounce it, but
Ternary.
Ternary. Thank you. Okay, so if there is a section article or there is a list of section articles, then we will want to map through them. And then if not, do this. Okay, and then if not, we're just gonna say no sections found. Or no articles. It's never this. What do you mean? Section articles. I'm going to do a console log here, just to make sure that I'm getting the behavior that I'm expecting, which I might not be. Articles.
I think the way you're nesting the curly braces and the curly braces is problematic.
Okay,
So like
this one-
19 through 20, yeah.
Yeah, it's just an extra one. Okay. Yeah, regardless, this is a good, yeah, I want to kind of see what my filtered articles look like. Because I'm still trying to debug why this is not grabbing everything.
Always good to log stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so it's empty. So we're filtering to lowercase. It should.
I put two lowercase on both of those, article dot section dot two lowercase, and then I did that and it worked.
Okay.
Is the section name not already lowercase?
It should be. Unless I'm doing something wrong with the syntax here, but let's check it. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I think I needed to reload my main page, but thank you, that worked.
Oh, also, if you look at the raw data and look at the sections for the different news articles, you'll notice it's not very well balanced. So it might just be an issue with the raw data itself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like 99% world news, and then I think there's like one business story.
Let's see. Opinion. So it didn't update. Okay, so I'm getting some weird behavior. We'll check this out. So if I go from here, are there no business items?
Why don't you check the JSON
Yeah.
file real quick?
No, even when I click back here. So I think it's because I have it in here. So I'm just gonna say, because it's not remounting the section page. It's gonna be the same. Right? No.
Oh yeah, don't you want to run that whenever the section changes?
Yep. So whenever section name changes. There we go. And now it showed up, so. Okay, so there's world news. I guess there's no other ones. I can just change a few. I'm gonna look up national. Yeah, there's nothing other than the world news, which doesn't really help us. Let's find world. I think it's like that. All right. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to replace a few of these. So national. View, and then what's the other section? Business and opinion. Business. And opinion. I feel like that's good enough. All right. So actually, this is perfect because our information kind of changed here. Hopefully, I don't know if it'll pick it up, but let's say if our articles also change, then we'll change it. It might not, because our set state, so in our app.js, when we're doing use state, that's when the component renders, and we don't have it in a use effect. But if we had a use effect around this, we could say if articles changed, or sorry, if the news data changed. But I'm not sure if it would actually pick up on the nuance of changing the JSON inside the full file. Yeah, I'm not sure if it would actually do that. So let's see here. Actually, I'm going to go back to the first page because we need to reload our data. Go to opinion. We have some opinion ones: world, national, and business. Awesome. Yay. We like functioning websites. Any questions?
Can you just show us your section page again?
Here we go. Let me make this smaller. So just to kind of go over this one more time, when we call our URL with sections / whatever section name we want, it's going to take our section name, and we are, whenever our section name changes, we are going to have an update event happen. So the use effect is going to call whatever information is in our function that we defined, right? So right here, what I'm doing is filtering the articles that I have. So articles here that we sent in with the props is a list of all the articles that we have. And I'm doing a .filter, which is a function that sets a variable. And the variable is just one of the items in this list. So I just called it article. You can call it whatever you want. And after the arrow, you define what you're filtering on, pretty much. So here I wanted to make sure that article.section is equal to the section name that I got in my parameter. And then I set our section articles state. I set it to those filtered articles that we have. And then in this div, if we have section articles, then I'm mapping through them, or I'm mapping that list to a list of items. Actually, I'm gonna add a key, because if you noticed in the console earlier, we had an error, not an error, a warning. So our key is going to be I think article has an ID, so we'll just say article.id. And yeah, and then we're displaying our articles in a list with the article title and the section. Any questions?
Zainab, before we do our next break, can you put this on GitHub so I can see where I went wrong?
Sure, yeah.
Can you explain why you had to put section name inside the brackets for the use effect? Oh, you also put articles in there too. Yeah, can you explain why you did that on line 16?
Line 16. So this, I wanted to say, every time a section name changed, I want to run the update again. Because you saw before, so articles, this might not actually change anything. I wanted it if there were articles that were new or something like that, that it would cause this to re-render. But I'm pretty sure the articles are not going to change because we're pulling it from a static file. So in here, this parameter tells you on update of this, run this function. So like we saw earlier on in the function in the class-based component. So when we do component did update. So this is the equivalent of this. Component did update, and it's asking like, did the section name get updated? If it did, run this function, do this. Because if we didn't have this here, like we saw earlier, if I go back here, I have national, so this is national, but when I'm in here, if I click on this, this changes, but my list doesn't actually update. So that's why I had to put it here in the square brackets, because I want to track the section name being changed. So if I add this, if I go to national, it updates. Go to business, it updates. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and can you just go back from the top? Like, I'm trying to remember how we set up that it's going to grab that value when we click on the title. Can you walk through that part again?
Yeah, so this was back in our app nav. So our navigation bar has links at the top. So we went through all of our sections in that one list that we had. So we have our four different sections. And then we import them into our navbar component. And here I just initialized a new state with those sections that I got from the JSON. And then I created a navbar. And in here, I am looping through these items that I grabbed from the list, which are the individual sections. And then for each one of these, I am creating a nav link. And what this link does is when you click on it, it will reroute you to whatever you put in the href. So I set my href to be equal to this because this is what I want to reroute it to. So hashtag sections / my section name, because nav item.value is going to hold that lowercase name that I had. Where's the sections? Here. So sections.value, and it's going to give me this. And that is the part that is being appended to here onto my URL. So that way, when I click here, so if I click, it adds that because I clicked on world and it took that value and added it to my URL.
And how does use params know to only grab that very last section?
Because we defined it in our app. So in our routes here, anything that's that has a semicolon, that has a colon, after it, that's your variable name. So this knows that it is going to be a parameter, and this is going to be the parameter name. It's kind of similar to the Django stuff that we did, where instead of this, it was like you define like int or string, or I think it's string. It might be different, but so yeah, similar to Django, this is how this one works. So if you just put the colon and give it a name, it will automatically grab that and put it into the parameters of this URL. And we gain access to it from inside this this component, because this component was rendered when this URL was called. So when the URL is called, the component renders. We go into the component page, sorry, the section page, which is that component. we can access that parameter with use params, and I have to use the exact same name that it gives me, because that's how I can grab it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, Dalton?
I guess I'm not really tracking where, so I get like the use effect and that's how like the component updates, but I'm trying to, so like when you initially go to that route, I don't understand what's telling your code to actually generate it initially.
Initially, so when your component mounts, it will automatically call this on the first time, even if this didn't change, because technically it changed because it didn't exist before, but it calls it because it's the first rendering, so it'll call the use effect.
Now, I remember from this morning that you had said you could, like with the use something, that you could avoid that. So is that not, was that just for like educational purposes? Is that not actually bad practice to do that?
It's not bad practice. You would use that if you wanted to do two separate functionalities based on if it's a mount, like a component did mount, or if you want to do component update. So if you want to separate them out, then I could do like I did in my example earlier, where I think I still have it. Yeah, I still have it over here. In here. Okay. So here I wanted to do two different things. I wanted to have an update here based on a value. And then I also wanted to just do it on first render and on dismount. So I could add this in here, I believe, and I would get the same functionality. But I wanted to separate the component did mount from the component did update, because if I added this console log in and just put it in here, we're going to get it every time. Unless, I mean, we could have just used this variable, the first render one, and that could have gone around it. But this, yeah, this was just for kind of educational purposes and showing that you could have multiple if you have different functionalities for each one. You could also have a different prop here or state that you're tracking. So if I'm tracking this other value and I want to do a different set of things when this value updates, that's when you would have multiple.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I think it's time for a break. Let's come back at 11:25. So we'll take a 10-minute break and then finish this up. Sounds good. All right. So now that we have this working, we have the filtering of the news articles based on the section. Actually, if we wanted, instead of having just our, what is it called? This, like the title displayed like this, we could actually do a article teaser like we did before, or we can have an article list, even better. Let's do that real quick. I was going to start in the next one, but this is, I think, going to tie everything in together. So I'm in my section page right now, and I'm going to import, what was the component name? Article list. And if you guys remember the article list, we send in a list of articles, and it creates the teasers based on that. And then we'll have, if we click on the title, we should be able to go to an article. So I'm going to import my article list. article list from article list. Okay. And then instead of this, I'm going to instantiate an article list component. And I'm going to send in articles, the filtered articles as the prompt. So I'm going to call it articles, and then I'm going to send in third articles. Okay. Let's see what this does. I think this should work automatically. We did it correctly. So, oh, I didn't run my program. Okay. Which directory? Going to website. There you go. Just running it. I think does the article list not exist here?
I think you have to use the
I
the use state.
misspelled it. The amount of spelling errors that I have is just very, very funny. Okay. I'm back in my section page, and now I should be able to get article list. There we go. Okay. I'm getting another error.
I think you have to pass in section articles instead of filtered articles.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. This error is I think it's in this directory. Okay. Start fresh components / article list. Let me just check that. Yeah, the name is spelled correctly. I think there's another import. Where is this one? In my home page. Here we go. I just needed to save it. Okay. I just yeah, the import was weird because it was using a wrong name. All right, so if we click on world, these are a list of everything actually. Okay, no, I think that was just, it's a long list. So national, I know it's a little smaller, so there we've got the different ones. Opinion, we got different ones. Business, we got different ones. And if we still click on it, it'll give us whatever article we specified because the IDs are still based on the actual article ID, and it's not based on wherever it is in the list. Unless it is. No, the first one is 9. This one is 2. This one is 1. Okay. Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure that the lists are doing it correctly. All right. Any questions on this? I just created a list, that's all. With our new article list. Good. Okay. Let's do, I'm actually going to add a home button here because I hate having to keep going back. Yeah, Caleb.
So I do notice in that console, I'm getting an error about having a unique key. Is that relevant at this point for when we're doing the filtered articles?
Section page. Yeah, we should. Or section articles. Okay, so this is not correct, the way I did this. So I'm mapping through the section articles and actually creating a list for each one of these. So that is not correct. I don't want to get a new list every time, and it's just going to be the same list over and over. So that was a mistake. So instead of that, I'm going to take the article list, remove the mapping here, and just call article list by itself. Because the article list inside of it is another map, and that's what's going to take care of our entire mapping. So I'm just going to save my files. I'm going to go back here, and actually going to start from the home because I think it might need refreshing. Okay, all of them, opinion, now we only get a few, and that is how it's supposed to be. That makes more sense. Okay.
Cool, thank you.
Of course. So I'm going to go back to the nav bar and just add a quick link to my my homepage. So I'm going to do that before looping through the nav items. So here I'm going to say, so this is going to hold just a list of nav items. So if I put nav nav link here, it should just append this list onto this item, so shouldn't give me any issues. So I'm going to say this is called home, and my href is going to be just this slash. Actually, I don't know if this is gonna give me weird behavior. Let's test it out. So I go here, I have home. Okay, it worked. So it just brings me back to my home. Any questions? This is just, I added one more link. Stick with the theme here. Okay.
Looks like you don't have to have the curly brackets either.
For here?
Yeah.
Oh, that, yeah, that's just because, yeah, I'm not actually inserting anything. You're right. Okay, cool. Awesome. Now what I want to do is add an article search. So let's try adding a search bar here.
So real quick, Zainab, for the bootstrap stuff, I'm assuming just from that documentation, you knew the different kinds you wanted to do. But what if like you wanted to do a drop down and everything? Are those different components that you would import for that?
Let's see. It's navbar, right? Navbar.
Yeah, if you don't know off the top of your head, I can just look it up later.
Yeah, so there's a nav drop down. So there's specific ones that are part of the navbar API.
Okay.
Yeah. So here you'll get some more information over here. And the types of things, and yeah. Any other questions? No. Okay, so now I'm going back to my main page. And I'm going to go to the home page actually. And I want to add an input. So I can do a search. So let's do that before our article list here. I'm actually going to use an input group from here. So I'm going to Google it. Bootstrap input group. So this will allow you to make like a form pretty much. And you can have whatever input pieces you want. So here. Okay. I'm just going to show an example of this in here. I'm going to import input group. And I need to also import form control. From React Strap. And then in here, I'm going to create an input group. And inside the input group, I'm going to create an input group text, so text field, or yeah, let's see what renders actually. So I'm going to call it search, and yeah, let's do this so far. Okay, so there's no such thing as form control. I think that's something that's built in. Not, yeah, okay. So here there's a search, but it doesn't do anything. It looks like just a button. So the form control might be the part that actually gives us the component to type in. So I'll look it up. We're going to add a placeholder. We'll look up by title. So we're going to allow a search for an article by title, and then on change, that means whenever the text inside that form, when it changes, then we're just going to send in a function. So we're going to do handle change, and I'm going to create that real quick. Constant handle change. And I'll do a console log. And it's just going to say that the value changed. Here, let's just close this tag. And let's see. Form control is not defined.
I think you misspelled it.
Thank you.
So also, I think we have to import the form control. So we have to import form from React Bootstrap, and then the form control is a property of it.
Thank you. So I could probably do this shouldn't have import from form control from Bootstrap / form. I believe that should work. Okay.
So you can import form
Form.
from React Bootstrap /form, and then the form control is a property of the
So
form.
it's form dot. Oh,
Yeah. That looks, or I think it's just form.control. Yeah, form.control.
oh, okay. So they changed it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little different, just slightly from the
Yeah.
basic Bootstrap.
Okay, so now we have our search bar. And if we type here, you see every single time I add a key, it's telling me that the value has changed. I add another key, value changed. And that's just because I'm printing it out. So what do we want to do? We want to probably take this and find whatever. So if I click on search, nothing happens right now. Actually, will this click? I'm not super familiar with the form. Let's see. Okay, so the form group is just like the container, and we have form labels and form control, which is, yeah, form control. Disabled forms. Okay, so I could just add a submit button. Oops. I just wanted to see. Okay, it's just a regular button and type submit. And since it's inside the form group, it should automatically get it. So I think the form group has to be within the form. So yeah, I think I had like an old way of doing this. So I'm gonna remove input group. And I'm gonna do a nesting of form. So the form, I'm gonna put it around the entire thing where the input group was. And then instead of input group, I'm gonna call this form.input. Or no, form.group, sorry. There we go. Form.group. All right. Book group is not defined. Should have removed it. Oh, here. This is, it should be form.text, I think. Okay. It looks uglier. I think this should be form.label. Yeah.
Zainab, you can try copying and pasting what I put in the chat.
Let's see. Okay. Let's see what this is. So it's a form with form control. Oh, cool. Okay, so the form control actually gives you all of this information, or these props that you can set. So type is a search, placeholder is search, class name. I'm just going to take off the class name right now because I don't have anything. Unless that was one of the predefined class names, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's just adding some margin.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so I'm gonna just delete this. Form control. I think in here I should have access to on change, yeah. And then and change, which is what we were doing for here. And okay. That replaces that. And then we have a button. And Okay. Just gonna look at it.
Yeah, the spelling error on handle.
Oh my God. Okay. I should always just assume my errors are going to be spelling errors. Button is not defined. Okay, I just need to import button. Slash button. Okay. Now that works. Doesn't look prettiest, but yeah, our value counter thing or our value print thing still works. So awesome. So what are we going to do with this? If we have data in here, we should want to save it probably in state. So I'm going to import use state. From React. And then I'm going to create a new state. Let's call this one search title. That's a good. And then set search title. This is going to equal use state, and I'm just going to initialize it with an empty string here. And so when this changes, I probably want to set the state to whatever this value is. So if I'm doing this correctly, I think I should be able to access the value here. But I might need to send it in here. What was it called? Form on change. Okay, this doesn't help. So where's the name coming from? So the form control should have some form of value thing. So so as placeholder.
You should be able to treat it like a regular input for the most part.
So they have this prop, which is called value, and yeah, the value attribute of underlying input. So you can have, I guess that value would be if you're setting something initially. But I used to, sorry, what did you say, Raphael, again? I was kind of in my head.
You can mostly just treat it like a regular input. So it'll have the on change event. You can pass in a callback function, and it'll get the event object as its first value.
And it'll automatically, I mean, I will do, oops, this, right? But what, I'm trying to access this one, which,
So maybe just change the name of the parameter in your handle change function. Let's just call that event instead.
and does it need to be in here?
Yeah. 'Cause it's getting passed in, and then
Do I need it in here too? I forgot.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then inside of your handle change function, you can console log like event dot target, then event dot target dot value or something.
yeah, I think it is. That value. Okay. And here's where I can just put vectors. Hey, it worked. Okay. Okay, let's see. Awesome. So every time it makes a new one, or this is the value that I'm grabbing from here. So the way we accessed it was we took in the event from the on change, and then we sent it into the handle change, and we have access to it here now. So the value of it is going to be in .target.value. Thank you, Raphael. Okay. So now we have access to it. Let's set the state. So we're gonna do good afterwards. So we're gonna set search title equal to our. So I'm gonna just give an alias so that I can do a constant. Constant value equals this. And I'm just gonna say value here. It's easier to type. And then set search title equal to our value. Okay. So what if we wanted to just search without clicking the button? Do you guys have any ideas? So right now we have access to our search title. So this is supposed to be the title. So if I wanted to say EUM, and it should probably give me this one or this one. What could be something that I could do here to search based on the changed value? So search title is changing here. We learned it today.
Put those brackets to update the value.
Is it use effect?
Use effect, yes. So we can use a use effect. I'm going to import it up here real quick. Okay, so we can use this to track. If our search title is changed, we want to search or do something. But okay, so the first parameter again is a function. And then our second parameter is what we want to track. So in here, we want to track the search title. Search title. Use effect is going to, let's see, what do we want to do here? We have access to our articles. So we could maybe do a filter again. So we can do I always forget if I should use left or not. So I'm just gonna call this filtered articles again. So our filtered articles are going to equal articles dot filter. Yeah, Dalton?
So just to be clear, does this search bar is only going to work on the home page, correct? Like would so, but the home page isn't a component, so there would there be no way to get this search bar to also work on the section page? Or would that be like a totally different thing?
So if we wanted it to be working on both the home page and the section page, that means we would have to put it outside of one of the page components. So we would have to put it where the nav bar is, which if we want, we can do that real quick. We can go back to our app.js and oh, actually, no, we can't do that right now. But so instead of putting this in our section page, we can just, sorry, instead of putting it in our home page, we could have this form be its own component, which I probably should have done that. Let me do that real quick. Okay, so I'm making a new component, calling it search. JSX. Actually, let's just keep it in here for now. Just because for time's sake, it's already 12. I want to finish this, but yeah, we could lift it to the next one. Actually, that's part of the homework to I think it's like an additional step. Yeah, to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, where were we? We were going to filter. Okay, so articles.filter. I already forgot the syntax, of course. Okay, so we're going to grab an article, and then per article, we're going to check. I think it's part of. I had copied it earlier from some. It's not React, it's JavaScript, but hold on. Filter. I think it was contains or something like that. Contains string. Includes. Yeah. Includes. Okay, so we're going to do article.title.includes. And what are we going to put in this includes?
Search title.
Yeah. Okay, so this should give us our filtered articles, and then we will say, I'll just have a results state. And then I'm just gonna have an empty set or list. And then I'm going to call set results equal to, oops, set results as a function. And then I'm going to send in filtered articles. All right. So when our search title changes, it's going to look for the articles that have that title and set it to set the results state to that list. Did someone have their hand up? I missed it.
I did. I put mine up for a second. I apologize because I was out this morning, but I'm reading the notes, catching up. I just wanted to verify when you put a use effect in, but by default, the stuff that you put in it happens after the initial mount. So
Yes.
it's a component did mount section essentially,
Mhm.
which means that when the component mounts, it's going to return its render below, and any of those functions that happen to be called in there will be called within your component here. And then the inside of the use effect will run because it did mount. Is it going to do that return
Yes.
below first before it does the use effect?
Which return?
I mean, the whole component's return. Because component did mount means that
thinking,
it's done
yeah.
mounting, and a
It's-
mount involves a
yeah.
return, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to render that
well,
return and then run the use effect?
think so. Actually, Raphael, do you happen to know if it runs it before the return or after?
I'm not certain. I want to say that the use effect runs after the component renders, after you've returned the markup. But I'm not certain about that.
Okay, that aligns with what I'm reading in the documentation for the hook itself in React, and with the flowchart of mounting and updating and unmounting. Because it says the constructor, the render, and then the component did mount happens because it's a past tense mount.
Yeah.
So
that would be the most sense. Like it would make the most sense.
okay, so with regards to the flow here, instantiation of the component mounts it and returns the stuff at the bottom, which means any functions invoked there are going to run. And then the use effect happens because it did mount. And then anything returned by the use effect happens before it dismounts.
You mean if I have a return right here?
Yeah. Am I getting ahead of
that's
you?
correct. No.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna put the dismount for this example, but we showed it earlier, and yeah. So if you have a return here, that will be whatever's inside of it will happen when you're dismounting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty, got it. Thank you so much.
So yeah, this is going to get called on first mount, and then if this changes again, if we didn't want it to get called on the first time it mounts, which we don't really need it here, we would probably put similar functionality to what we saw earlier in the lifecycle demo, where we can check for the first rendering if we don't want to automatically search, or we can just say if search title is not empty. That's actually empty string. So this would work better, simpler. Okay. So what did I want to do? So we've set our results from our search, and I'm going to display them in here. So I will create a loop, and I'm going to, where is it? Okay, so I'm going to take my results, and so I'm going to see first if we have results. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did earlier, where I put the question mark to see if there's results. If there is, then we want to go through everything. So results.map. And then we can map article to and what am I going to return? Let's just return a div right now with the titles. So article dot title. And then does not exist, then we could just return nothing. Okay. Let's see if it works. First, okay. So here I'm gonna say, I'm gonna look up, actually, I'm just gonna start typing REM. So anything that has REM is coming back. If I want to only look for that one word, I can actually put a space in front of it because it'll catch if there's a, yeah, if it's like an isolated thing. But yeah, it seems to be working. So every time I look up something, it will give me the list of articles that I have based on this. Any questions?
Is it looking through the whole article or just the title?
This is just the title. So if I really wanted to, I could have, what is it called? I can have like a separate smaller component that gives me an article list, and then it would have the similar functionality of being able to click. Or this could be just article teasers. So in here, I could do an teaser. I think it did the import automatically. Nice. And let me remember what this actually takes in. So it takes in these three, ID, title, and created date. And if I want it, I don't really want to specify them specifically. So I can just say ... article, and it'll send everything in, but it'll only actually use the ones that it wants. So yeah, that's just easier for me. And so if I did that, now there's no break between them, so you can't really see. But I'm gonna do, so this will give me just line break before the article list. Okay, so I'm gonna go home, and here I'll just look up UM, and I got this one, and that's the only one that it returned. I think Sint had multiple, yeah, there we go. And then if I click on this, it'll still give me the correct article. Any questions?
Can you go back to your homepage code, please?
Oh, homepage. What do you guys feel, or how do you guys feel about this? Is it making sense? Is it not? Easy, hard? No comment.
I'm getting a weird value is not defined, but I'm not quite sure where I'm going wrong.
Which area?
For me, it says where I define it as value equals event target dot value. Underneath handle change. Oh, I think I see the problem.
Did it work?
Yep.
Awesome.
I forgot the const.
Ah, okay. What else? Any other questions?
I'm getting the unique key prop error again. Is that relevant here also?
Yeah, because we were mapping the results to separate components. So wherever we have a map, we should probably put a key. So I didn't do that, but yeah. oops. So in here, I could just say article.id is the key. And that should fix it. I'll actually check. Update. Okay. Yeah, I'm not getting any more errors.
How do we do it where if it doesn't have the matching like search string, it just doesn't show up? Because the way, at least the way mine is working, is it'll have the ones that match that word come out first, but then once it runs out, it just prints the rest of everything. Even if it doesn't have that word in the title, if that makes sense.
Oh, so that's because we have the article list displaying regardless here.
Oh, okay. I
This
see.
was this was our main page. We just added this to the top. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
More questions?
Yeah, how would you, I was trying to, so the break wasn't really doing it for me because I couldn't tell the difference. So I just added a heading that said alter articles to make so that I could see that it was working.
That
But then I wanted to try and add a title if results, existed before you gave me the matching articles. I wanted to add a heading that said, matching articles, but then it's giving me some sort of syntax error, like saying I can't add a heading right there.
Let's see. I think I might need to put
Oh, does it have to be in brackets?
this and then
Problem.
I was gonna. Okay, so that would have to be out here. Okay. So I'm gonna just make a div. Just to check that I can put this around this. I should be able to. Yeah, this is the same as our before thing. So you just have to encapsulate it in or put it inside a container.
Did you always have the results.map in brackets?
Which one?
So
I didn't before because I was only returning the map, but now since I want to add another component, I would have to do this. I would have to add a div around it and then put it in curly braces. So here I can say search results. And that will return that. And then before the article header, I can just put
okay,
all articles. Yeah, and this should, there we go. Yeah. You can also add, I could add a class name and add some styling or something like that if I wanted to see the difference. But yeah. Good questions. What else? Well, if that's it, then I'll stop this recording. Logan, no, for this functionality, we actually don't need this search button because we are searching on keystroke. So if as we're typing, we're just searching that way. Yeah, so here I can actually remove this button. I'll comment it out in case anyone wants to play around with having a button. Yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording if no one has any more questions.